Okay, good evening everybody. Welcome back. This is part 5 of Finding Your Path, Meslias Yesharim. We're looking at some of the commentaries, and I just want to stress that I'm trying wherever possible to make each of these shirim separate in terms of being able to take something away from it without having heard the previous ones. Obviously, it's best if you can follow the series along, but I understand that may not be possible. So I'm going to try and make every shir like a capsule in itself. So just to give you a little bit of a recap where we left off last week, we spoke about how the neshama is disgusted by this world, or at least would be disgusted by the world were the point of this world merely for pleasure, physical pleasure. Because the neshama is something extremely elevated, comes from the palace, as we said last week, and is a princess. And the princess finds herself in the house of a lowly country bumpkin, being fed blood sausage and boiled potato when she's been eating 5-star cuisine. Of course, this is a mashal. The idea is that the neshama is repulsed by something as physical as this world. But, and this was the point, that seeing as the point of a person is in this world only to the extent that he can use this body to elevate the neshama. The neshama can only have this elevation from being in this world. And therefore, the neshama is happy to be in the body, but that's only to the extent that a person uses his body to elevate the neshama. And that's where we left off last week. So we'll carry on now. V'hinei, achash yadonu zeh, novim miyad, choymer ha-mitzvos asher oleinu yikor, ha-avoda asher biyodenu. After we've said all this, it should become clear, we'll understand immediately the seriousness of the mitzvahs which are upon us, and the dearness, the value of the avoda asher biyodenu. I saw one commentary wants to say the mitzvahs here is referring to mitzvahs lo sa'aseh, meaning how important it is to stay away from doing an aveira, and how important it is to do a mitzvahs aseh. That's what he wants to say avoda means. Another way I think could be understood is mitzvahs means literally mitzvahs, the dearness, the seriousness of the mitzvahs, how serious it is to do a mitzvah, to be over on a mitzvah, transgress a mitzvah, and how much schar and how important it is, seeing as that's the fulfillment of the purpose of a person in this world, how important mitzvahs aseh become. And the yakar avoda, as he said before, is really a person's in this world, as we're going to see in a second actually, to do 3 things. To lasos the mitzvahs, to do the mitzvahs, la'avodas Hashem, to serve Hashem. Now in that context he means the avoda, which of course in the days of the Beis HaMikdash was the avoda of the korbanos. Nowadays we don't have that anymore, ba'avonotenu harabim, through our many sins. What we have in the place of the korbanos are the tefillah. Tefillah is a direct connection with Hashem. That's when we speak to Hashem. And the third thing a person's here for is to be la'amod b'nesoyin, to stand up to tests. Everything, those are the 3 things that a person's here for. To do the mitzvahs, to daven, and to stand up to challenge. As we said before, the whole point of this world is that a person is placed in a situation of challenge in order through meeting those challenges, he can elevate himself. So once we understand this, what we said before, that the neshama is only supposed to be sent down here in order to be, to be able to elevate itself through the correct use of this world, through the whole point being that a person should have the ability to choose. The neshama is placed in a world, even though it comes down from the highest reaches, it's placed in a world where choice is possible. As we said many times before, the word olam in Hebrew is connected to ne'elam, which means hidden or vanished. Hashem is deliberately concealed in this world in order that man can make that choice. That's why the physical world has to be so opaque. But if a person makes those right choices, so that has the effect of elevating the neshama to a level which is not possible without it coming down here. And therefore, as we said before, the neshama is happy to be down here in this world if it's used in the correct way. But seeing as the only way the neshama can be elevated is through what he's saying here, which is doing the mitzvahs, meaning staying away from an aveira, and embracing as much as he can positive mitzvahs. Therefore it must be very clear how serious that is. Also, he goes on to say, Ki hinei elehem ha'emtsoim ha'me'ivim osonu el hashlemus amiti. He's referring to the mitzvahs. The whole of this paragraph really is talking about the mitzvahs. Meaning that once this is being clarified, that the whole purpose of a person in this world is to reach his status in Olam Haba, and that this world is like a vestibule, is like you want to ask a question? Okay. A vestibule, an antechamber, and it's very important because only mitzvahs can only be done in this world. But the only way you can get into the main purpose of this world, which is Olam Haba, the main purpose of creation was the man that Hashem should be able to give of himself, which is the ultimate good. And the place where that chiefly and principally happens is in Olam Haba. The only way you can get into Olam Haba, so to speak, the ticket, the only way is through the mitzvahs, so it should be very clear how important the mitzvahs are, because that's the only way the person reaches to shleimus ha'amiti, true perfection. And he stresses this, by saying, Asher beladam lo yusag klal. Without the mitzvahs, a person cannot achieve this at all. And it's a very important thing because a person thinks, well, I can be a good person, and that's all I need to do. But that's not true. Hashem prepared this world, designed this world in a very specific way, and if one would take a very simplistic rationale, it's a bit like pressing buttons in a penny arcade. If you push this button, this happens. If you don't push this button, you may do something that looks very similar to pushing that button, but nothing's going to happen. The world is absolutely precise, and the mitzvahs are absolutely precise. I mean, when I say absolutely precise, we see the concept of lechatchila, b'di'evid, the best way to do the mitzvah, the minimal necessities to perform the mitzvah. But these are things which are within their own parameters, absolutely final and absolute. How do these mitzvahs work? Some of them we seem to be able to understand. Let's say kindness is a mitzvah, chesed. Some of them we have no idea whatsoever how they work. Explain to me how tefillin work. But we understand that all of these mitzvahs, whether they seem rational to us, even of course in essence they are above all rationality, but even though Hashem has given us a tam, interesting, the word in Hebrew tam means both taste and reason. A reason for something is no more than a taste. It's something which makes it palatable for you to do it. The reason why mitzvahs have reasons, to the extent that they have reasons, is that we should, just like, why does food have tam? Because in order for a person to survive, he has to eat. If food was tasteless, people wouldn't eat and people wouldn't survive. So just like food has taste in order for us to eat the food, but the essence is not the taste, the essence is to feed the body. So similarly, to feed the neshama, we have to do mitzvahs, and the reasons that we can find, the tam in the mitzvahs, are there to make them palatable to us. But without the mitzvahs, there is no way that we can get to Olam Haba. No way we can fulfill the purpose for which man was designed and created. V'ulam yadua ki ein hatachlis magia ela b'koach kibutz kol ha'emtzoim asher nimtzeu asher shimshu la'agio. Okay, it's an interesting idea he's saying here. Now, and however, it's understood, it's known. Ki ein hatachlis, that the result, the end result of something cannot come about, can only come about through the employing of all of the maximum the koyach hakibutz, of the power of drawing together all of the means and methodologies which are found, and by using them to reach this purpose. So forgive my translation, it was a little bit literal, but the idea is that it's clear that if Hashem designed a system and the mitzvahs are given to us here in this world in order to achieve this tachlis, this end, this target, this effect, it's clear then that all of the mitzvahs have to be used to the maximum. And we have to do all of the mitzvahs that we have the opportunity to do. And the mitzvahs that we don't have the opportunity to do, for example, the korbanos we can't do, Levi can't duchen, A man can't observe the laws of Nida. But we can learn about these mitzvahs, and by learning the mitzvahs, we have the schar of the mitzvahs. So a person, he's saying here, that the only way, the ultimate effect of the ultimate effect of this end, which is to be in Olam Haba and to be satiated with this supernal light, which is being close to Hashem, comes about to the maximum, is to the extent that a person employs all of the means which are given to him, which are at his disposal. As we said before, we'd be considering Chas v'Chalila Hashem extremely messy to have created mitzvahs which don't really do anything. It's like having a car where there are just knobs which are there for decoration, which, mind you, when it comes to cars, could well be, or what do they call it, bling, just to make the thing attractive. But that, of course, is not something. When it comes to Hashem's creation, nothing is by chance, nothing is without purpose, nothing is merely decorative, and therefore everything that every mitzvah, every opportunity that a Jew has in his life, he has to grab that. And if he doesn't grab that, he has a very interesting, brings Vilna Gaon and a very interesting idea, that it says, "V'lifnei mi'ata atid l'tein din v'cheshbon." So a person needs to know what, in front of whom he will eventually give din v'cheshbon. Din means judgment, cheshbon means calculation, literally. So din is what a person will be judged for he's talking now about mitzvahs lo saseh, on his aveira. If a person transgressed a mitzvah of the Torah, he has an aveira, he will be judged on that. That's din. V'cheshbon hu al hazman she'asa es ha'aveira she'ba'osa zman haya yochel la'asos mitzvah o lilmod. That same time that he was doing the aveira, he could have been doing a mitzvah, or he could have learned. So that's also, so to speak, he's being judged on two things: the etzem aveira, and also the bittul zman, and the loss of the ability, because he had that ability there, as the Meslias says, to employ all the means available to him, and the fact that he not only, by doing that aveira, he not only did the aveira, but he lost the potential to convert time into something which was positive. I often like to say Judaism is about converting the present into the future before it comes to the past. Every second is presented to us, and we have that opportunity to use that second, that moment. And even if that moment is just the six constant mitzvahs that a person can think about, there's Hashem, there's nobody else apart from Hashem, a person can go through his life and just be aware of Hashem. That's another mitzvah. Shivisi Hashem lenegdi somid. You're sitting by yourself. A Jew should never be sitting with his wheels spinning. You're standing in the bus queue, you can say to yourself a perek tehillim, especially nowadays where we've got people in terrible trouble and captured down in Gaza. A Jew should never be, there's no such thing as, there used to be a joke, Hutner once said, between us and the Rabboni Shalom, between us and God, there's no Switzerland. There's no neutral territory. It's not just a question of, like other religions where you turn up once a week and you phone it in and then that's it, you're good to go. Judaism, a Jew is a 24-hour, 7 days a week occupation. And then therefore, as a taina, nobody should ever just sit and just b'mevatel zman. That's what he's saying here. But also zman haya yochel lasos mitzvah ol lilmod, as I said. Now that's what's called the cheshbon. The cheshbon is the calculation based on the fact that there was this din, the din on the aveira. There's a cheshbon also as that came out of the cheshbon. And then he says that, so that is part of, he gives two pshatim here in cheshbon. V'zeu cheshbon, that is what, shemachshavim, they, meaning upstairs in the court, they calculate the future, and they punish this person, al haragoyim shaholchu l'rik, right, as we said before, that have gone to emptiness. Milvad, apart from Masha and Man Nishimoiso, ala avera gufa sha'asa, as we said. Cheshbon ose achrei hadin. Cheshbon comes after the din. And the cheshbon is more serious than the din itself. Adam shechai biyadir hazois, a person who lives with this awareness, menatzel es achayim acheres, he will use his life he will change his life into another life. Ragaim, chashuvim, v'yikarim. Every second will be, how do you say, without, completely beyond price, priceless. And every action that he makes, it will be significant. Now, of course, again, this always has to be qualified, everybody each on his own level. But if a person would take, let's say, and he put on his iPhone or his smartwatch or whatever, that he's, for an alarm at some convenient point of the day where he would remind himself that of this idea, what am I doing right now? Why am I wasting time? There's so many times, that a person, you're in the lunch queue here and waiting up for lunch, say a Perek Tehillim, go over what you learned in the Shir. You'll see it changes your life when a person lives his life in a conscious manner, rather than just letting things go and not really focusing. It's a different kind of life. And also, as he's saying here, on the more serious side, that a person will be called to account for those moments that he wasted because he was doing an Avera. And also if he wasn't doing anything, just he was sitting Bittelzman is an Avera in itself. Again, for us on our level, it's difficult to utilize every single second. But it's good to know that such a thing exists, that such a concept exists, that's something to aim for. A person, if he doesn't have aims, if he doesn't shoot for the sky, he'll never even jump 2 feet above the earth. It's important to understand that there are people like this, and they're walking around on this planet, who walk around with a constant awareness of Hashem, constantly thinking in Torah ideas, constantly thinking about how they can do a chesed for somebody, constantly thinking about how they can, whatever it is, look after their family, help some poor person. Life is so precious that, and of course, as they say, in the non-Jewish world, they say time is money. That we say money is time. And time is much more important than money. If you lose $1 million, you can always make it back again. If you lose a second, that second's gone. It'll never come back again. Time is irreplaceable. Fresh cotton. And now he moves on to the next point. Because we see how serious and how important, how vital are the mitzvahs, because they are the matrix, they are the key which gets us to the place we're supposed to be, that we were designed for, Olam Haba. Therefore, v'chol hefresh cotton she'imotze be'emtzoim tibochein toldoto be'evor b'vadai ve'agia zman v'tachlis hanola lekibutz kulam k'mo shekosavti v'zeh baruch. So therefore he says, any minute deviation that's found in these means, in the mitzvahs, will be discerned, the result of that will become very clear when comes the time where the tachlis, the result which is generated by the gathering together of all the mitzvahs that a person did at that time and place in Olam Haba, as we wrote above. So in other words, he's saying any time a person deviates, that deviation, to the extent that he deviated, to the extent that he could have done that mitzvah better, to the extent that he didn't do that mitzvah as well as he could, to the extent that when he put on his tefillin, he could have had more kavanah, more kavanah, saying Kriya Shema, whatever it is. It's not just how do you say numerical? It's not just kamut. It's what's the word? It's quality. It's just not numbers of mitzvahs, it's the way you do the mitzvah. Every mitzvah is capable of almost infinite refinement in terms of its performance, in terms of its the kavanah, the intention. V'ata v'adayahu shedigduk sheyeduktak al inyan hamitzvahs ha'avoda muchrach sheheh betachlis hadigduk. And therefore, based on what we said, it's the precision that is required to do the mitzvahs and the avoda, and I think he's talking about davening here, mitzvahs and avoda. Muchrach, it's perforce. Shea betachlis hadikduk. It should be to the ultimate precision that you're capable of. He doesn't say you're capable of, I'm putting that in. He says to the ultimate precision, Kasher yuduktuku shokle hazahav apanimim lerov yikaram. Just in the same way that those merchants, pearl merchants, or gold merchants, weigh and are so precise with their measurements. Somebody who's, buying pearls or selling pearls, if one falls off the scales, you go, oh, don't worry about that one. It's when a person understands how important that the mitzvahs are so valuable, so vital, because that's really all there is at the end of the day that a person has when he leaves this world. So if a person thinks it like that, he will be certainly as careful as somebody who's buying gold or pearls. Ki toldotam noledes b'shleimus ha'amiti, because the result of doing the mitzvahs will result in this shleimus ha'amiti, which, as we've said before, means the perfection of person, perfection of the neshama, v'hayakar hanitzchi, and eternal worth. She'ein yakar lamala mimenu. There's nothing more dear than that. Okay, before we go on, I'll ask if you have any questions. So far, so good. Nimtzeinu l'meidim comes out from what we said. Ki ikar mitzias ha'odam ba'olam hazeh hu rak l'kayim mitzvahs la'avod la'amod b'nisoyin. That's what I mentioned to you before. It comes out. Ki ikar ha'mitzias, the essential existence of a person in this world is only to do the mitzvahs, v'la'avod, and to do the avoda, which is to daven, to pray, to connect himself to God, v'la'amod b'nisoyin, and to stand up to tests and challenges. And as we said, everything in this world, he said at the beginning, is a challenge. A person is challenged the whole time not to get angry, not to be mean, not to speak lashon hara, not to look where he's not supposed to look, not to waste time, as we've been talking about tonight. Every single second of your life is a challenge. Hashem placed us into a war field, what's it called, a battlefield, with a war raging in front of us and behind us, as he said before. The revealed battle is the one of poverty. The person is tempted to steal, that's quite obviously a nisoyin. He wants to put chicken on the table for Shabbos. Resisting that can be very difficult. Or the war which is behind us, the battle which is behind us, is where a person thinks that I'm a self-made man, I did it all myself, I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's why I have all the riches I have today. No, I know people who got up at 3 o'clock in the morning are still very poor. Everything that these two challenges a person has, the challenge of poverty, the challenge of riches, the revealed and the hidden challenges, everything in the world is a challenge. The challenge of gaiva, as he said, the challenge to believe that you're the one who did it, the challenge to dominate the physical taivas that a person has, which have been given to us for a purpose. Why? To dominate them, to challenge them. Judaism is not a monastic religion. We don't believe in the mortification of the flesh, except in very, very few situations, and certainly people not on our level. But those desires are there either to be used in the service of mitzvahs or to resist them. We live in a world where it's very, very difficult now. I've had the privilege to be doing a series for an organization called the Amoyin, and they put out every day a video. Every day, it's amazing, except for Shabbos, of course, and Chagim, on Shmiras Ha'inayim, guarding the eyes. Because that is the challenge of the generation we live in. Nowadays, I remember when I was a kid, if a person wanted to see indecent material, it would be a big deal. You'd have to get on a bus or go down to the wrong side of town and walk into a shop and face the embarrassment of asking the guy behind the counter. All of these things are tremendous, guardians against actually getting to do the Aveira. A person had to have tremendous amount of chutzpah, so to speak, in order to want to do the Aveira. And it took a lot of time. You've got to get on the bus and you're thinking there sitting, well, no, really, should I be doing this? And then you look in the front of the bookshop, do I really want to go in here? And then all of these stages where a person has a chance to pull out. Nowadays, God forbid, a person has a phone without a filter, he's there before he can say anything. He's got the most terrible things in the world in front of his eyes. And these things go in and they stay there. And they fade. But they fade very, very slowly. And that can change his entire life. It changes. This is well known now. So many problems with married people because they've viewed illicit material which can destroy relationships. So this is a big challenge now. Moshe Shapiro says, I mean, it's difficult for us to remember this, but back in the days of communism, I guess the late 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, the yeshivas were emptying out for the isms. Communism, Bundism, sorry, not Buddhism, that was later on. Bundism, Zionism, all the enlightenment, the intellectual ideas grasped people, yeshiva bochrim, and they yanked them out of the yeshivas. That's all dead now. Nobody's interested in ideas. What is it now? Benois Moab, the daughters of Moab. Immorality and the ease of which it is to access these things which can really change your life. They are life-changing experiences for the worse. So these videos, Baruch Hashem, I think have been very successful because they give every person every day a shot to catch himself. There are several techniques about. We're talking about the subject now of Shmiras Einayim, which is, I think, probably the major challenge. One of the major challenges nowadays that a Jew has in order to be close to Hashem. There's a couple of things you can do actually which are exercises, which are, for example, usually, as we're going to see, the Yetzer Hara says, do it now. The Yetzer Hara is very strong, but he has a certain weakness. He only works in the present. The Yetzer Hara will not tell you to go and do an Aveira in 2 weeks' time, or 2 days' time, or even in 2 minutes' time. If you can buy yourself a little bit of time, then he already will not be able to control you. If you say to the Yetzer Hara, he says, look! You say, I'm going to look, but not now. I'm going to look in 2 seconds. That you just bought yourself a reprieve. That's one very, very good tactic, because to go up against the Yetzer Hara is very, very difficult. But to negotiate, to buy time, he'll let you do that. Maybe not always, but it's certainly something which will work to a certain extent. To buy yourself a time. I'm going to look, but in a second. And by that time, that second's gone, you'll have been able to control yourself. Another thing is to control. Some people don't really control where they look at all. And you see this because, let's say, people are digging up the road and you'll find 20 people standing around looking at them. Or what are they looking at? I mean, you never saw people digging up the road before. Or if a plane goes overhead. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? People are naturally very easily distracted. At the base, back of the base of Medrash, what do you call it? A bookshelf falls down. It's so interesting looking at a bookshelf. A person is naturally curious. But if a person, next time something like that happens, like say the bookshelf falls down or a chair falls over, fascinating, right? Chair falls over in the back of the Beis HaMedrash, don't look. Because by building up your muscle on something which is really not too difficult to control yourself, let's face it, a chair falling over is not terribly interesting. Or watching a plane go over, or watching some guy, replacing an electrical cable. When you do that, if you do that, and if you do that enough, you'll see that you'll develop the midah of shlita, control, over where you put your eyes. And just like a person has to control what comes out of his mouth, he can also control where he looks. It's more difficult, but it's possible. And it's like all of these things, the more you do it, the more you'll see that you'll have more control about where you look. I don't need to look over here. I don't need to look over there. And so when something comes along that the Yetzer Hara really wants you to look at, you've got much more of a chance that for that split second you'll be able to control yourself because you develop the muscle of choice as to where you want to look. Okay, we got a bit off the topic here. We're talking about challenges because everything in this world is a challenge. A person is in the middle of a battle. And each one of us has our own different challenges. For some people it's anger. Some people it's taiva, it's greed, it's wanting to overeat. Each one according to his own particular nature. But that is the way things are supposed to be. A person is put in the situation specifically so he can overcome, or in sometimes, for example, channel these taivas. And that's what we're supposed to be doing in this world. 3 things: to do the mitzvahs, lasosa, to do the avoda, and la'amod b'nisoyin. And now he goes on to say, "V'hanois olamim ein rui shiu lo ela le'ezer l'siua bilvad shiyeh lo nachas ruach v'yishuv das leman yuchal lefnois libo el avoda hazos hamutalos olov." And I'll translate it, then we'll talk about it. And the and the pleasures of this world, it is not fit that they will be to him, for a person. A person only uses them to help. He says 2 words: la'azeh, to help, u'lasiwa. I'm not sure exactly what the difference is. As an aid and a help alone, only for that reason, that it should be that this person has nachas ruach, calmness, tranquility, yeshivat das, another word for probably the better words nowadays they have for like being, what do they call it nowadays? Chilled. At peace. Being able to focus properly, that he isn't all over the place. Why? Leman yuchal lefanos liboy, in order that he can turn his heart to the avoda, to serving, to this avoda, the avoda of Hashem, which is placed upon him. Meaning that this world, in one way, as we said before, this world is a bit like an atom. An atom can light up a city, or it can destroy a city. This world is full of physical pleasure. And the physical pleasure, unlike other religions, we don't look at it as a complete enemy. We look at it as something which has been put there by HaKadosh Baruch Hu in order to help a person. Everybody needs a certain amount of rest, R&R, recreation. Not even talking about sports, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa of nishmata v'snafsho sechem me'oid, to stay healthy. A person needs to chill. A person needs to relax. Of course, we're talking about in permitted ways. But it's amazing, I think we may have mentioned this before, but it's worth mentioning again, that this is, a person can take all these neutral, let me back up a little bit to introduce this. The Chovos Levavos says that there's no such thing, I'll paraphrase, as a devar shebereshus. Let me explain. We understand that in this world there are things called mitzvahs and there are things called averos. And the mitzvah is always going to be a mitzvah. Putting on a tefillin is always going to be a mitzvah, unless, of course, God forbid, the apostle. And eating a BLT is always going to be an avera, unless, of course, you're starving and that's the only food that's possible to eat. So there are mitzvahs on one hand, there are averas on the other hand. And in the middle, so goes the way people normally think about it, are devarim shebereshus. The neutral area, things which are neutral, which are neither mitzvahs or averas, which could be like going on a tiyul, which could be like, playing football, which could be reading a book. Many, many kinds of, let's call them activities, some leisure activities, some. It says to the Chovos Levavos, the idea that there's a thing called the Davar Shebereshus is true only in potentia, only in koyach, but not in reality, and not in the real world. In the potential world, there is something called a Davar Shebereshus. When you take that Davar Shebereshus and you bring it into reality, it's either a mitzvah or an avera. Meaning, let's say the doctor tells you, or current medical wisdom says, that you have to jog, I'm pulling a figure out of nowhere, 30 minutes a day. Okay, now you like jogging. And so I'm jogging 30 minutes a day. Now if you jog for 30 minutes, you have 30 minutes of mitzvah. Because you have nishmata v'snafsho sechem, number one. And also this is helping you to relax in order that you're going to be able to serve Hashem better, you'll be able to learn better. But if you jog for 45 minutes, so you have a quarter of an hour of Avera, that was not necessary. It was something that you just wanted to do. It wasn't being used as a mitzvah. Now, again, don't hold me to this, because it could be that there are parameters of but certainly you get the idea that that your time, your neutral time, the neutral activities are used in such a way that they are what you need and they are for a specific person. Some people need to go, like, say, I don't know, for a walk every evening for an hour. Okay, they need that. They need that in order they're going to be calm, they're going to be learned. That's called a mitzvah. That's part of your learning. If they go for an hour and a half, then that's a half an hour of Avera. You didn't need that. Now, what's interesting is, that's one aspect of this. Another aspect of this is that clearly, like, if a person, let's say, take for the example, he likes swimming. I don't know what you've given, maybe you have a hobby you'd like to throw into the arena. Let's say swimming for the sake of swimming. Now, this particular person, Reuven, loves swimming. He loves swimming. So he's a guy who's a bentor, he wants to steig, and he goes and he speaks to, let's say, the sports expert or his doctor. He says, "Doctor, how much swimming should I do? How often every week? How much?" Doctor says, "Well, the common wisdom is you do that." Okay, so he goes away. And he understands that he doesn't want to be mevatel zman, he doesn't want to waste his time, so he keeps to these guidelines, plus minus, as they say in Hebrew, more or less. Now, the interesting thing is that you would tell me that, well, hang on a second, Reuven loves swimming anyway. How can that be a mitzvah? I mean, he's doing it for himself. If Reuven starts off his swimming and he says to himself, I'm going to do this because I want to be fit, because I want to be relaxed, because I want to be able to learn better, even though maybe his real kavanah for the mitzvah is, let's say, 20% of why he's doing it, and he's got 80%, wow, this is great, I love swimming. That 80% I love swimming does not mevatel, it does not cancel the 20%. He still has 20% mitzvah. Usually we say that things are bottle barov, the majority dominates. Usually we would say that seeing as the majority intention is because he wants to enjoy himself, so hello, who are you fooling? You're not really doing this because you want to serve Hashem. No, you have both kavanas. True, you want to enjoy yourself, and you know something? It could be that whatever that kavanah lo lishma is, it's not mevatel, the mitzvah of doing this because I have to be relaxed and I'm having that kavanah, I have that intention. So that's what he's saying here, that this world should only be used as a help to a person, that he should have nachas ruach, tranquility, calm, yeshivat das, in order that he can turn his service to Hashem. None of us are machines. And, we have to be very careful that we don't go crazy. Because I think one of the problems sometimes in a yeshiva like Ohr Somayach is that people take on too much too early. But much better to go slower and be constant. And to realize, look, I'm not where I'd like to be, but that's the direction I want to go in. And as I said, this is a tremendous thing. Whatever you do, which is not learning, to have in mind as much as you can say, well, it doesn't have to all the time, but I'm saying that person before he starts swimming says, okay, I'm swimming, why am I swimming? Because I want to be able to serve Hashem better. I want to be fitter. I want to be calm. I want to have tranquility in all that I can do. In other words, by doing that, he's transforming all of that time into l'shem shemaim, even though it's true, he's enjoying it. There's nothing wrong in enjoying it. But if it becomes something that my ultimate purpose is that I can serve Hashem better, then he's transformed every moment of his life into something which is significant in the service of Hashem. I think we won't finish the chapter this week, but Hashem will finish it next week. Kol tov.